Hi everyone, this is Sabina Persson from Castellans, and you're so welcome to the videocast CX Minutes. It's 6 questions, 6 minutes, and it's all about customer experience. So this is a series of episodes where we bring you actionable insights, practical know-how, and personal stories from top professionals all around the world in just 6 minutes. And I'm super happy to be joined by Adrian Swinsko from Punk CX today. Welcome, Adrian.
Hi, Sabina. Nice to be here.
Good to see you and so nice to meet you finally. So we're going to talk about challenges in CX or challenges and lessons in CX. And the first question I have for you is really, who are you and what do you do, for those who don't know?
Wow, that's almost an existential question. Who
Yeah.
am I? He says, kind of like stroking his chin, staring off into the distance.
Ah.
Um, so my name is Adrian Swinsko. I am a writer, researcher, author, and advisor on service and experience. I have been doing that, focusing primarily on that sort of service and experience space for the last, where are we now? 2025. So that must
2025.
be the last, what, 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
And the thing I do is I try and advocate for better customer, employee, and business outcomes. Really, that's the thing that I'm most kind of interested in. How can we deliver, develop, manage, nurture organizations to deliver better outcomes for both their customers, their people, and also kind of themselves as business entities.
Mm.
I do that through some writing, some speaking, some workshops, and some advisory work. And so I'm here to try and get people to think differently about things, and in doing so, try to come up with their own ways of delivering the right sort of service or the right sort of experience that makes sense for both them and the customers.
Mm. Yeah, great. Okay, so in your opinion then, what is the biggest mistake that companies make when it comes to their customer experience?
Um, so I was thinking about this, and so it's a really, I mean, I could probably come up with a long list, but
Yeah, that's also
I would say that kind of like
a big question.
the one thing I would
Mm.
just say assumptions.
Mm. Yeah.
I think many times that people make assumptions about what their customers want and or
Yes.
need,
Mm.
and they need to be careful about
Mm.
that because
Yeah.
oftentimes those assumptions don't stand up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
Now, let's take two examples. One, a really simple example, which is oftentimes companies make the assumption that particularly younger people
Mm.
don't want to speak to them on the phone or don't want to speak
Oh
to
yeah.
anybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But research shows that that's just not true,
Mm.
and actually, you know, particularly say younger customers like Gen Zs,
Mm.
people say, well, they don't talk on the phone. Like in actual fact, they do. It's
Mm.
just they're not talking to you. That's that's the thing.
You are the
Uh,
problem.
yeah, you're the problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because if you think about kind of how people um, do things, the people talk
Mm.
and they talk a lot. Like take for example,
Yeah.
gaming is a great example. When people are playing online multiplayer kind of games,
Mm.
if you've ever, I'm not a gamer myself, but if you've actually kind of looked into it, people are talking all the time
Yes, yeah.
to
While
their
they're
fellow players
playing,
while
right?
they're playing, and they're like
Yeah.
doing their thing and
Yeah.
then talking to their teammates and things.
Hmm.
And so the fact that they
Mm.
don't want to talk, they're
Mm.
not mute.
Mm.
They
Mm.
they talk.
Mm.
Um, and research also kind of like shows that when Gen Zs, like many people, they want to help themselves, like
Yeah.
many others. They want kind of self-service functionality or capabilities that make sense.
Mm.
But when things get complicated, um, or get serious, or are things in a domain where they don't know much about,
Mm.
they get to a certain point that they end up wanting to talk to somebody
Yeah.
because they want that level of guidance. And that's a very sort of universal kind of human sort of thing.
Yeah. So
And so that,
assumptions really is
assumptions. And I would give
the
you,
mother of all ups.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
again, another example is well, companies want to deliver a personalized experience, and customers want a personalized experience themselves. But
Yeah.
people make assumptions about what what personalization kind of
Yes.
means, and oftentimes they're at cross purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Whereas
got it.
companies want
Yeah.
to try and sell people more stuff, where customers are turning around and go like, "Well, yeah, I like you, but I want you to hear me and see me and respect me."
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, then I'm not necessarily going to tune into you. And so
Yeah.
I think there's a great quote that comes from an American actor called Alan Alda, which I really like and I use kind of probably far too often.
You can
And
use it
Alan
here as
Alda,
well.
Alan Alda, if people don't know him, he became famous for was it the 1970s, 1980s kind of TV series called MASH.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
mashed. Yeah.
yeah, so he's a
Yeah.
tall, skinny
Ah,
surgeon in
yes,
MASH,
got it.
and he gave a talk at I think his daughter's commencement college kind of a commencement sort of speech, and part of that he said, assumptions are your windows on the world.
Mm.
Scrub them off every once in a while so that you can see clearly.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. That's so
Right,
good. And it's so right. And I
right,
think also what you're saying, assumption is really I mean, quite dangerous actually to, make business decisions also based on assumptions. That's one of the worst thing we can do in CX, I
yeah.
guess.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's one thing I would say. One of the biggest
Mm.
challenges that people make is that they make assumptions
Yeah.
about what they should do and why they should do it without
Yeah.
actually checking whether
Mm.
that makes sense or not.
Yeah. Good. So how do you handle customer feedback in your work? That's my next question.
Openly and with transparency,
Yeah.
I guess,
Mm.
is that because, you know, there's this old sort of thing is that feedback is a gift,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
Customers don't actually have to give you feedback. But when they expend the effort to give you
Yeah.
feedback, it shows you that it matters
Yeah.
to both them, and then therefore it should matter to you.
Mm. Mm. Good point.
And so I would say that even if it's negative feedback, you have to treat it as a gift, and you have to think about it. You have to receive it, hopefully, with honesty and openness and humility, and to think about, well, what does that mean, and how can I, if it's an existing problem, how can I fix that, and then can I also respond saying, thank you for that. Here's what we've done instead to improve that. And so I think that's the biggest thing about feedback just generally is that people don't close the loop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times people say that with feedback is that they take it and they analyze it and then they decide what they're going to do about it and then they do something about it. But more often than not, people don't actually go back to the customers and go, here's what you said. Here's what we did.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. And it's a pretty easy one to actually implement as well. At least in thought.
Yeah. And it's a very human thing. Imagine that if you were kept,
and
if you
empathic.
kept it, yeah. And say that you kind of were speaking to a friend and they were always asking for your opinion, or you were always asking them for their opinion or some feedback or whatever. And they were giving and giving and giving it. But you never told them what you did about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been like just throwing things out in a well and never never get
and it's like, well,
back from it.
The likelihood of them to continue to give you feedback is probably going to go down.
Yeah, true. Good. Okay. What is the common customer experience challenge that you face and how do you address it?
So I would say not necessarily me. I think it is me, but it's also a general sort of a general
go
thing,
for it.
and that is and I do this piece of research. It's almost like an emergent piece of research it's an ongoing sort of thing, which is trying to spot some of the behaviors that companies that lead their field in this space, they do and they do well. And one of the top things that the leaders do is there's two things I think that they do. One is that they start with the end in mind. They take an experience, data, and tech ordered approach rather than the other way around. Most people kind of then, it seems to me, almost acquire some technology, populate it with some data, turn the handle, and then the experience is what they get.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, here's the experience that we would like to deliver, and this is why.
Yeah.
This is the data that we need in order to deliver that. And this is the technology that we're going to need in order to kind of power that through and deliver it at scale. And I think that people end up with this back to front sort of thinking. And further on that kind of point is like, I think and linked to that kind of point is that if you ask many people, like, what is your experience, vision, and strategy? Most people will tell you, oh, this is what our vision is, and it'll be, a bunch of,
fluffy,
like buzzwords, and all tacked together.
Oh, yeah.
AI enabled, digital first, blah, 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 all these different sort of things.
Yeah.
You look and go, well, I don't understand how that's differentiated from anywhere else.
True. Yeah.
And given that, you're not really telling me what's your strategy for delivering that. And then most importantly, and this is the thing that pervades all of the experience sort of space, is they don't necessarily understand how it's connected to the businesses and commercial objectives.
Yes.
Right. And if you can't do that, if you don't have the right sort of vision and the right sort of strategy, and if it's not aligned with the commercial objectives, then you're going to struggle to prove ROI.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so the biggest challenge is
struggle to get heard as well, I think, internally, right?
And if you can't prove ROI, then you can't prove relevance to the business.
So true. Yeah. Amen to that. Okay, next question. How do you think one should balance customer needs with business priorities? I guess that one touches upon the
absolutely. I think it goes back to the kind of the question I was saying before. How do you balance that? Well, there's a reality in all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Is it has to make sense for the business. The things you want to do has to make sense for the business and also for customers. And if they don't, then you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you have to make a choice. And rather than and if that might not be in the way that you want to be, then you have to at least communicate what you're doing and why you're doing it, because it's about managing expectations.
Yeah.
There's no point people kind of buying from you and expecting a white glove service or a white glove experience if you're in a low cost, high volume market.
Yeah.
So it has to be relevant for both the business and also for the customers. And what you have to do is manage those expectations. Otherwise, you're trying to do things that don't make sense.
Yeah. You need the balance as well, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And my final question for today is, what is one piece of advice that you would share on this topic that we've been talking about? Lessons and challenges.
I would say get out from behind your laptops.
Yes.
And get out into the world. Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And the reason I say that, so I think there's different levels to this. And we all want to be, make decisions based on, be data-driven decision makers. Yeah. That's fine. But I think there's levels to this, and that sort of levels to data, as it were.
Yeah.
And levels to data and how it relates to us. And I think the first level is that data informs us, and that's fine. So it could be analysis and dashboards and visualizations and all these different sort of things and insights, etc. But the next level down is when you kind of turn around and go, well, but stories move us. So when you add that sort of qualitative kind of richness to it, hearing customer stories or employee stories, then you can start to, you go like, oh, you add a bit of emotion to that, right?
Yeah, so true, so true.
But the third level, and I think it's one of the most important levels, and it requires individual choice and responsibility, is the idea that experiences compel us.
Yeah.
And so when we kind of, if you get to a point where you're using data to try and find insights or provide analysis to tell you what to do, but then you're adding color to it with kind of like, you know, actual customer stories and things. But when you go out into the world and you talk to colleagues and you talk to people that are serving customers, and then you go and speak to customers or try and be your own customer, do you actually get a visceral sense of what is actually going on?
Yeah.
And that's when experiences compel us.
Yeah.
They compel us to do something because we see it and then it becomes real for us, rather than something that just sits on a screen or something that we read or something that we listen to. When we
get kind of
experience
immersed
something,
in it.
when we experience something, when you experience the, you know, the pain or the hurt or the discomfort or the difficulty that is involved with doing something as a customer and employee, then you start to get to the point where you're like, I feel compelled to go and change that, because I think if I change that, then it's going to matter.
That's powerful. That's really good advice, Adrian. Thank you so much. All right, and we're getting to the end of our minutes here. I mean, Adrian, huge thank you for those powerful insights. Really, really appreciate it. And it was a really inspiring conversation. I think you helped us see things in a new light, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And with those words, I want to thank you all for watching. And that's all for this time. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.